The time has come, ladies and gentlemen. We got Super Bowl 60 just 48 hours away between the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. Obviously, analysis of that game, how I think it's going to play out, my predictions for the winner, Super Bowl MVP, all of it. Cannot wait for the Super Bowl. We've been building for this. Obviously, going to get into the NBA trade deadline. Giannis Antetokounmpo did not get moved. Does he want to play in Milwaukee? Does he want to play for contender? He can't have both. Get to that. Kristaps Porzingis, the Warriors. Low risk, high reward. Maybe I don't hate it that much. Why Donald Trump obviously attacked the Obama family regarding his racist True Social post, the real reason why he did that. Get to that. Tom Brady says he doesn't have a dog in the fight. Really? In the Super Bowl? I don't know what's going on with that. Get to the Hall of Fame class. To me, there was only one snub that I really had a problem with that missed out in this year's Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. And at the end of the show, of course, predictions for Super Bowl 60. The carving it up is absolutely jam-packed loaded on a Friday because
finally, it is time for the Super Bowl!
Let's go, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. I am Bryson Carver, and it is a Super Bowl prediction Friday. I'm as hyped to be in studio today as I have been for any show all year. Now, given we're not even a month and a half into 2026, but still, I'm excited. You already heard the rundown of what we're going to be talking about. It's funny that with the Super Bowl 48 hours away, and with the trade deadline just happened in the NBA, most of the big deals in the NBA happened on Wednesday, not on Thursday, the actual trade deadline. But the main story is what we'll get into in terms of who was not dealt. So let's get into him right off the bat. Again, loaded show. Let's get right into it. But first, Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to remain a Milwaukee Buck. And listen, I said at the end of Wednesday's show, I had speculated at the end of even Monday's show that he's probably going to finish the season as a Buck, and then the Bucks will revisit potential trade offers in the summer. Here's what I find really, really odd, is that there appears to be almost a disconnect between Giannis and the Bucks about what the best thing for Giannis and the Bucks is moving forward. Now, listen, it's not Giannis's job to figure out what's best for the Bucks in 2030. Giannis is a player, great player in his prime, future Hall of Famer. He's got to look out for what is in his best interest right here, right now. But when that article comes out a few days ago, where Giannis talks about, hey, deep down in my bones, I want to be a Buck for the rest of my career. And then Giannis Antetokounmpo comes out with the post on Instagram with the Leonardo DiCaprio scene from The Wolf of Wall Street. We've all seen it. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. He posts that. It's like, okay, did you actually want out? And according to Brian Windhorst, who we quote, we played bites from him over the course of last week, saying that, yeah, Milwaukee wants to move off Giannis because they know they can't contend for a title now. They're 2.5 games out of the play-in tournament, much less being in the playoffs. In the weak Eastern Conference, we want to build for the future. We feel like we can get a king's ransom for Giannis, and they didn't like what the Warriors had to offer them. That was widely reported late on Wednesday. The Warriors team, front office team, brass, Kerr, Dunleavy, everybody kind of had like a big, long meeting and decided not to pursue him before the deadline, which I think was a smart move to do. I'll get to the Porzingis trade in a few minutes. Timberwolves can't make the deal. Again, that doesn't shock me at all. They had nothing to give Milwaukee as it pertains to draft picks, which is what Milwaukee wants more than anything. And then they declined Miami's offer. To me, Miami was far away the most likely place Giannis gets dealt before the deadline, at least, outside of the Warriors because of their stockpile picks. But again, Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, like good players, but not guys that are necessarily going to move the needle, especially in the future for the Milwaukee Bucks. And so you take all those things into consideration. My question ultimately comes down to is, what does Giannis want out of his career moving forward? What is he trying to do and trying to accomplish with the rest of his career moving forward? Is this a situation where got my title, got a couple MVPs and a Defensive Player of the Year to boot back in 2020? End of the day, I love it here in Milwaukee. It's been very well documented, the personal and emotional ties that Giannis has to the city, to the fan base, all of it. They embraced him when he was an 18, 19-year-old kid coming from Greece. And, there's the great, 60 Minutes years ago did like a piece on Giannis and about, when he comes to America and he has the smoothie, God Bless America. If you haven't seen it, Google it. It's fantastic. And he's, there's certain guys. I was talking to my buddy Tim Barner, shout out to Tim, Boston Sports Summit, about this with the Tom Brady situation where Tom says he doesn't have a dog in the fight in the Super Bowl. We'll talk about that later in the show, where Tim was kind of telling me, like, listen, Tom was in Boston or in the New England area for a long time, for 2 decades. And the way but never was initially ingratiated himself in the city, in the community. And the way I interpreted that is, okay, Tom was in Boston. Tom was not of Boston. Giannis is of Milwaukee. He's not from Milwaukee. He's from Greece, of Milwaukee. And so if that's the case, I want to see Giannis playing games that matter. And I don't think he could do that with the Milwaukee Bucks. I know they apparently tried to make a deal for Ja Morant. They might still do it in the offseason. Wendy was talking about today on ESPN, and I think it's become apparent to all of us at this point, Ja has negative trade value. I think the days of the athletic point guard who can't play defense, can't stay healthy, and can't shoot, having any value in the NBA, those days are over. The John Wall era, the Russell Westbrook, who was a better version of John Wall, and Ja Morant, like that time has passed. They can still have a role in the NBA, but not as essential role as a team you build around to build a contender. I mean, are the Bucks going to delude themselves and think, hey, listen, man, Giannis, Miles Turner, and Ja Morant, here we go. We're going to win the East in 2027. If that's what makes them sleep well at night, okay. Listen, the Bucks are never, in all likelihood, never going to land a player of Giannis' caliber ever again. Took them 50 years to get a player like Giannis after they traded Kareem, obviously, in the mid-'70s to the Lakers. When you're a small market team like Milwaukee, like Oklahoma City, like the Cavaliers, Orlando Magic, just go up and down the list, Sacramento Kings, like, if you are to land a guy of this caliber where it's like, right now he might be one of the 25 greatest basketball players to ever play the game. 2-time League MVP champion, had one of the greatest finals performances, individual final performances we've ever seen back in 2021 against Phoenix. We go out of our way to put a contending team around him. Well, now we don't really have the assets. We tried the Damian Lillard move. That didn't work. Right? So now you're just left with Giannis, Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, and a bunch of guys. I mean, that's what you're left with. I mean, their big free agent acquisition last year, again, was Miles Turner. Very good player, important to the Pacers' run last year. Not going to move the needle in terms of being a champion. Heck, I'm not sure moves the needle for the Pacers all that much relative to Halliburton and Siakam and all those guys. And so, again, if Giannis wants to contend, which he's a competitive athlete, I'm sure he does, and he also wants to remain a Buck, those are mutually exclusive decisions. Giannis cannot stay in Milwaukee and still want to contend for championships or have realistic prospects of contending for titles. On the other hand, he could go to Houston Rockets, which is a team that I've mocked Giannis to for a while now. I think Houston's got the assets. They probably have to give up Alperen Şengün. It'd be a major package to give to Milwaukee, but this is Giannis we're talking about. Instantly, he has a chance to contend for titles. Thurman Thompson, Kevin Durant still there, good coach Ime Udoka, the bench, all those guys. Reece Shepard. Of course, Reece Shepard's probably in a deal for Giannis, but point remains, he's got a shot to contend, but hey, it's not the same as being loyal to Milwaukee. I was drafted there in 2013. I've ingratiated myself within the city. I've embraced the fans. Fans have embraced me. It's like a family that we've got going on here. That wouldn't be the case in Houston. It's like when LeBron James went to Miami, instantly he was he was the best player in the Heat over what was still a great end of his prime, Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was always going to be more beloved in Miami. Steph Curry was always going to be more beloved than KD. Now, again, I think Steph was better than KD. Wade was obviously not better than LeBron in Miami, but kind of a similar dynamic. Amen Thompson, kind of the franchise cornerstone in Houston, would be more beloved than Giannis. Wemby, if he ended up in San Antonio, is going to be more beloved than Giannis. There were reports circulating that part of the reason he didn't want to go to Golden State is he didn't want to get the backlash that KD got when he went there in 2016, which those are apples and mangoes different. It's not even this. It's not parallel even in the slightest bit if Giannis were to end up joining the Warriors. But some of it is Giannis is better than Steph today. It'll always be Steph's team, Steph's arena, Steph's city, Steph's fan base. That's just how it is. If you're drafted by a franchise, fan base watches you grow up, evolve into a great player. In the case of Steph, a legendary player. I don't care who you are. You're never going to steal that from him. You're never going to take more of the spotlight than that guy. And so, and I'm not faulting Giannis for not wanting that to be his reality necessarily. I am faulting him for being a little bit indecisive in this entire dynamic. If you want to play in Milwaukee, fine. You're loyal to that city, got no problem with it. If you want to contend for championships, fine. You cannot have both. It sucks. There was a time where he could have both. That's no longer the case now. The Bucks tried to hit their window. Again, the Drew Holiday trade, they got a title out of that. Chris Middleton gets hurt in 2022. Giannis wasn't healthy in 23. Both Giannis and Dame weren't healthy in 24 after they made the Dame trade. Last year, Dame blew his Achilles. Giannis did all he could, but the team was not nearly as good as Indiana. Windows close fast in the NBA. And especially if you're talking about an Eastern Conference that's as bad as ever. I don't know, man. There's an indecisiveness about Giannis, this whole ordeal, that I think is kind of getting on the nerves of the Bucks and the NBA as a whole. Particularly teams that were wanting to try and go get Giannis, like the Heat, the Warriors, the San Antonio Spurs, potentially Houston Rockets, Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, I think this will be a conversation again in 4 months. Second, the NBA Finals is over. That's going to be the very next question. Okay, where's Giannis going to end up? If you had to ask me now, I genuinely don't have an answer because I don't really know what Giannis wants. I'm not entirely sure Giannis knows what Giannis wants. I really don't. And so, listen, like I said, at the end of Wednesday's show, I was like, yeah, my gut tells me he probably doesn't get dealt. The Warriors trade offer kind of faltered a little bit. Minnesota just flat out did not have the assets unless they got multiple teams involved. Miami, maybe, but are the Bucks going to help the Heat within their conference? Like, that's why I think that's why I think Giannis is not going to be, if he gets moved, he's not going to move to an Eastern Conference team. I just don't see that happening. But I don't, this entire, dynamic scenario, again, Giannis, it feels like instantaneously, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, he comes out with the Wolf of Wall Street post. It's like, what were you hoping to gain out of this entire situation? I don't know. Very weird. Very weird. Even weirder, by the way, is that at the Celebrity All-Star Game, which I think is next Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Shams Charania is going to be one of the players for, in the game, one of the celebs, so to speak, and Giannis is going to be coaching Shams. So, don't know what that dynamic's going to be, but it should be interesting. Speaking of trade deadline, this is the last trade deadline topic we'll do today, and obviously until the summer. So, again, the Warriors, y'all know I'm a Warriors fan. If you can't see the head, the Iguodala, book, I want Iguodala. That's not what the book's called. It's Max killing me. Point is, diehard Warriors fan here. And I said last Wednesday when the news broke, hey, Giannis and the Bucks are seeking a trade. Now at this point, it's like allegedly. The Warriors are maybe the front runners to get him. And I said that day on my show, as much as I hope it happens, my gut tells me it does not. Because I think Milwaukee's going to look at, as much as we like the Warriors, especially their future picks to when Steph's either going to be past his prime or retired, and the Warriors probably aren't going to be very good. Those might be good draft picks. Also, there might be teams this offseason that have better offers for us than Golden State does. That, and we really don't want to take an injured Jimmy Butler's salary or Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga's salary. And so you take all those things into consideration. I did not think he was going to end up with the Warriors before the deadline. I did. So that wasn't like anything devastating to me. So the question then for Golden State was, what do they make out of this deadline from here? And the attention immediately turns to, okay, we've got to get Jonathan Kuminga out of the building. It's not his fault, not the Warriors' fault. This just doesn't fit. Jonathan Kuminga is an exceptionally talented young player, ridiculously explosive, lob threat, the whole thing, can get his own shot at the basket almost at will, has improved his three-point shot, got a little bit better, get a little bit better at that. Really turnover prone. That's the kind of thing that drove me crazy about him in Golden State. Like felt like every time he drove the basket and there was an opportunity for him to score or get a little hesitant, he would turn the basketball over. He needs an opportunity to develop on a team that's not ready to win right now. And because of that dynamic, Kerr would sit him. I mean, it felt like as soon as Jimmy Butler was dealt to Golden State last year, Kuminga never played another minute until the playoffs when Steph went down. And there became, naturally, a little bit of a not a heated dynamic, but a Jonathan Kuminga and Steve Kerr's relationship has been better than it was in the last year. Let's put it that way. They've been on better terms they've been in the last 365 days. And again, I know Kuminga stands, Warriors fans want to take sides here. My reaction is it's nobody's fault. Kerr's trying to put the best roster on the floor that gives you a chance to win games. That's why you saw last night in Phoenix, take Podziemski, who's been dog crap, off the floor. Warriors make a comeback and beat Phoenix. Kerr's trying to put the best lineup he can out there. Kuminga doesn't fit that with what the Warriors are trying to do. He doesn't fit the Warriors system whatsoever. Kuminga needs a chance to develop. Guess what? Now he's going to have a chance to do that in Atlanta. It's a little bit weird fit with Jalen Johnson. We'll see how it works. Who do the Warriors get back for Kuminga, though? And Buddy Hield, for that matter. It's none other than Kristaps Porzingis. So let's go and show the trade. Trade's pretty easy. There's no picks involved. It's Warriors get Kristaps Porzingis. The Hawks get Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield. By the way, shout out Buddy Hield. The dynamic between him and Jimmy Butler was nothing short of comedy, and I think every single NBA fan loved it and is going to miss it. Point is, so a lot of Warriors fans were very, very split in this deal. There was one camp that was like, oh, man, injury prone, has an illness, which we'll touch on in just a moment. 7'3", fits us really well, but how often is he going to be available? And then there's another camp that's like, yeah, I know he may not be available much, but in the times he'll be on the floor. 7'3", can space the floor. Have Warriors fans like myself not been begging for the Warriors to just go after a real big man for once? I love Al Horford. I love Al Horford. I'm glad we brought him in. It's been great veteran presence. Made some good plays last night in that comeback over Phoenix. He's really kind of a stretch for at this stage in his career. He is. He can score inside. His value is shooting beyond the three-point line. Before that was Kevon Looney. Great offensive rebounder, but not like a true blue big. He's 6'9". Draymond's had to play the 5, which has resulted in some back and forth with him and Kerr. Like, the Warriors need a center. Well, guess what? Kristaps Porzingis provides that. And those that love this trade see that, see a guy that can space the floor, guy that is basically Al Horford, but younger and taller and a better, rim protector. Ironically, it feels like, I was talking to my buddy Tim about this. Shout out to Tim. Check out Boston Sports Summit, especially after the Super Bowl next week. We took both of Boston's bigs from the 2024 title run, which is kind of funny. Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford. Here's where I'm at in the Porzingis deal. By and large, I think it's a net positive for the Warriors. I don't think this puts them, oh my gosh, adding Porzingis, man, now the Warriors are a contender. Called on the show. The day that Jimmy Butler went down, the Warriors' title hopes died. Much as that hurts me, that's the reality. Steph now does not have a consistent, legitimate number 2 co-star, can get his own shot on a consistent basis, can slow the pace down by getting to the free throw line. The intelligence Jimmy Butler brings to the table, the experience, playoff medal, all of it, that's gone now. And it sucks, but he's gone for the rest of the season and a big chunk of next season, I imagine. Porzingis does not fill that hole. Now, if it was Steph, Porzingis, what you will get from him, Jimmy and Draymond, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe this team is a very real threat in the West. Not the case without Jimmy Butler. Why do I think it's a net positive? Well, A, you get the Jonathan Kuminga drama out of the building again. It's not a stain on Kuminga. He was not a bad teammate. Matter of fact, according to Draymond Green and others, he was an excellent teammate. He handled everything very well. It's just, he wants to play. Of course he does. Kerr wants to put the best lineups on the floor and get the most out of Steph's career that he can. Of course he does. They need to go their separate ways. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyone trying to make Kerr or Kuminga the bad guy, both are wrong. It's a good thing Kuminga's in Atlanta and Kerr has the lineup he has now. So obviously we know about Porzingis' impact on the court. In the 17 games he's played this year, he's averaged 17 a game, 5 rebounds, shooting 45 from the field, 36 from 3. Is capable of being one of the better rim protectors. We saw him in that finals before he went down against Dallas early on in that series, play the way that he played. The question, though, of course, with Porzingis has always been regarding his health. Now, his last year in Boston, which he was only in Boston for 2 years before they traded him to Atlanta last offseason. But his last season in Boston, I remember talking about my show, like, this is really weird. He'll go out, play 5, 6, 10 minutes, come out at the either end of the first quarter, early to mid second quarter, and never come back in the game again. And we know how his value is to the Celtics. Again, rim protection, he can space the floor, the whole bit, can score, get his own shot, mid-range, all of it. Why is he not coming back in? Like, what's going on here? Mystery illness that was eventually, Shams reported this, I think, in December, that he was diagnosed with something called POTS, which is basically postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Essentially, and this is from Dr. Nirav Panya, MD, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, on Twitter. Basically, the way he describes it, what happens in this condition is that your autonomic nervous system is not functioning properly, leading to an elevated heart rate when you stand up. Symptoms on top of the fast heart rate can include dizziness, severe fatigue, and nausea. There are ways to manage this, such as diet and other things, but in general, it can be a very difficult condition for athletes. So, in other words, there are games he's going to be available and games that he is not going to be available for the Golden State Warriors. When he's out there, I already told you his value. Can space the floor, great shot blocker. The Warriors finally have a big, which they haven't had a legit big since, gosh, like Boogie Cousins. So what was left of Boogie Cousins in 2019? Like, it's been a while. Also, as much as anything, you know what it does? Kristaps Porzingis is a free agent this summer. If the Warriors don't want to extend him, his contract's off the books. Frees up cap space. That's why I say low risk, high reward. Like the risk is, I mean, you got Kuminga out of the building because people are like, oh my gosh, you let go of Kuminga. Porzingis isn't gonna play. Kuminga wasn't playing either, so it doesn't matter one way or the other. So what you get from Porzingis, you'll take it. Anything he gets a bonus because of the condition that he's dealing with. Now, apparently Rick Celebrini and the Golden State Warriors medical staff are kind of going to look into like, okay, is POTS the condition that he has? Is it something else? Is it a combination of it? We don't know. Reportedly, he's not going to play tomorrow night against the Lakers. He should come back sometime in the next week for the Golden State Warriors, so we'll see what he does on the floor. But if it doesn't work, guess what? His contract expires. It's why a couple of years ago when everyone was getting all up in arms, by everyone, I mean Gen Z Warriors fans who had this weird affinity for Jordan Poole, we're talking about, oh my gosh, you trade Jordan Poole for an expiring Chris Paul contract. Yes. So if Chris Paul doesn't work, he's a free agent. The Warriors don't have to bring him back and hurt their cap in any way. So I think this is a good move. I think the Warriors got this deadline with the could. They ended up also trading Trace Jackson Davis, Pat Spencer, who played well last night, hit 5 threes in the first half. People say he looks like me, which I don't know if I necessarily see it, but okay, not all white people look alike, but maybe a little bit. So I'm curious to see what the Warriors do. Probably in the buyout market, go and get like a wing or somebody. Mike Conley already re-signed with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know what they're going to do in that regard. But again, I still, by and large, feel the same way about my Warriors as I did last week. They're ceiling at the very best second round. And that's if everything breaks perfectly. That's if Steph goes like nuclear in the first round, which we know he's capable of doing. It's one of the greatest players ever. Of course, he's capable of that. But if you had to ask me my gut feeling, Warriors probably get the 7 seed. I think they're going to run down Phoenix or the Lakers. We'll see. Probably Phoenix. Get the 7 seed, win your playing game, and then see what happens against the San Antonio Spurs, who the Warriors have beaten twice this year, so that's something. But I like the trade. I don't think it is a bad move for the Golden State Warriors by and large. And so, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the – once the Giannis conversation ended in Golden State, it's okay, what's the plan now? Because the relationship between Kuminga, Kurt, it's not tenable. Like, you got to get something for this kid. He's really talented. There's going to be somebody that wants him. That somebody was Atlanta. Bring in Porzingis, see what happens. What you get from him, anything you get, it's positive. Right? Great rim protector, space the floor. Saw the impact he had in Boston a couple of years ago when they won the title. You'll take out of that what you can get. And good pick and roll partner potentially for Steph. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a quick, well, I don't know if it'll be that quick, a detour into the world of the United States of America. We had the current president make blatantly racist attacks on a former president and his wife, a former first lady. Get to that. Of course, plenty of football beyond that, Hall of Fame stuff. A quick discussion on MVP. The NFL honors were last night. The Tom Brady thing. Tom Brady doesn't have a dog in the fight in the Super Bowl. I don't believe him, but okay. And of course, the granddaddy of them all. Predictions for Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, California. All of that coming up in just a minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Back to Carving Up Live. So before we move on with the show, do this always, for the last, I've done it for probably the last month and a half or so, but wanted to advertise the Carving It Up merchandise. Scan that QR code on the top left of corner of your screen. Check out our Carving Up merch. We got hats, we got t-shirts, we got hoodies, we got jogging shorts, jogging pants, bags, stuffed coffee mugs, water bottles, anything you could possibly imagine as it relates to merchandise. We've got that on the Grid Network website. So definitely scan that QR code right there that I'm pointing to. It'll take you directly to the Carving It Up merch. But if you want to, look around the website a little bit, there's other merch from our incredible shows on the Grid Network. We got All Even Podcast, Boston Sports Summit, Saturday Morning Tailgate. Again, we'll come back for season 2 of Saturday Morning Tailgate in the fall, in around mid to late August. But go and get your merch right now. Get fired up for the 2026 college football season. Plenty of stuff there. Our new basketball show, The Grid. Check that out with my guys Paris, Dylan, and Tyler. Great dudes. Looking forward to seeing how that show continues to progress. Great shows on The Grid. Cam Fan, Mike and Josh. Check out all of our shows on The Grid. Check out the merch for those shows on the Grid website. And if you just want straight Grid Network merch, that's there too. You want a Grid Network hat? I've got one of those. You got Grid Network t-shirts, the whole thing. Rep the brand. We would greatly appreciate it if you did so. All right, let's man, he won't let us take a break. So, in the middle of the night, when we're all sleeping, when I'm dreaming about who I'm going to pick in the Super Bowl, but I'll be honest, by last night I had a pretty good idea of it. And think about what our plans are going to be for where we're going to go watch the game and what our Super Bowl foods are going to be, and if we're going to gamble. We're all thinking about that, I'm sure, as we slept and dreamed last night. And in the middle of that, the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, posted a video on Truth Social, and towards, I think, the end of that video, it depicted the 44th president of the United States, Barack Obama, and his wife, the former First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama, is photoshopping their faces on apes, on monkeys. And we're obviously not going to show that image. It's on social media. You can see it. So obviously it's blatantly racist. I mean, that I think that should be apparent and obvious to anybody that has eyeballs and any knowledge, any baseline knowledge of the history of Black folks in this country. People have used, Darwin's Origin of Species as like to create a hierarchy of where it's like, white Caucasians were at the top of the list, and Black folks or really anybody of color were closer to that of monkeys than they were to Caucasians. We know what the racist trope, how it goes. That goes without saying. And of course, you've had people in his administration, such as the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, come out and say, it was from an internet meme. Stop with the fake outrage. And she said that it was from a full video depicting Trump as the king of the jungle, while Democrats were shown as characters from The Lion King. Now, I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but I'll say it now. Lion King, to me, is the greatest movie Disney ever made. I love The Lion King. That soundtrack, story. Yes, I am that adult that still cries when Mufasa dies. I'm that guy, okay? I'm going to confess that. Love The Lion King. Seen it a million times. There are no gorillas or apes in The Lion King. Closest to that is Rafiki. He's a mandrill. That was not how Barack and Michelle were, how the Obamas were depicted. Even if it was blatantly racist, but there are no gorillas in The Lion King. Maybe in the background, but no central characters. Caroline Leavitt probably knows that. She has a child. She probably grew up when The Lion King came out. People know that. But there's a number of reasons. There's a central reason why Donald Trump put this out there, but some of the supporting reasons, the ones around it. Number one is, and this administration has a tendency to do this. Remember last year during June, I think it was right at the start of Pride Month, during June, they changed the name of the USS Harvey Milk. It's like, well, that was intentional. That there was planning going into that. For those who don't know, Harvey Milk was a gay rights activist, and he was assassinated, I think, in the 80s. He and the mayor of San Francisco, and they named the ship after him. Well, they changed the name at the start of Pride Month. That was intentional. And as we're in the opening days of Black History Month, he posted that video on social media, which, by the way, the administration says, oh, fake outrage. Why is everybody worried about this or is overreacting? Guess what? If you go to Truth Social, which I do not have a Truth Social account. If you do, whatever. That video is not there anymore. It got deleted. And I think an intern is being blamed for it. Has this administration never heard of the Harry S. Truman phrase. As a matter of fact, it was literally a sign on his desk, "The buck stops here." And that's how it is for literally every president in American history. The buck stops at their desk. Get credit when things are going well, get the blames when things aren't going well. Fair or unfair, that's what the job entails. But the Black History Month component, of course that played. What also is at play, and this has been the case since Obama became president in 2009. So for going, 17 years now. Donald Trump is deeply jealous of this man. Deeply jealous. Because you're talking about a Barack Obama. You don't have to agree with all his policies. I'm somebody who is an independent who tends to lean left on most issues, but there are things Barack Obama did. For example, drone strikes, completely against the. I'm not pro-Obama in every single thing that he ever did. I think he did some very good things. I think he did some things that were not good for the country, regardless of your policy and how you see a Barack Obama. What is objectively true? Good-looking guy, highly intelligent, probably is the most gifted, I think, in the modern era of presidents, which to me would be like Theodore Roosevelt on to now. To me, the most gifted orators to ever occupy that office, FDR, JFK, Reagan, and Barack Obama. Just individuals who knew how to set the tone of what they were trying to, accomplish through. I mean, again, Reagan was literally called the great communicator. FDR had fireside chats. Some of Kennedy's speeches are quoted to this day, including his 1961 inaugural. And Barack Obama, again, we know what he brings to the table when it comes to his speech ability. Somebody who was absolutely beloved by his side of the aisle, has a family, wife that loves him, two very smart, talented, and I imagine a very bright future in his daughters, Malia and Sasha. To this day, I remember when Biden was still in office, when Obama visited the White House, I think it was to see his official presidential portrait be revealed. And it was, I felt a little bit bad for Biden, where it was like everybody flocked to Obama because he was the cool kid coming back to school, right? And Biden was just kind of off in the background. Like there's obviously a charisma component that Barack Obama has that Biden doesn't have, that most politicians in American history don't have. Trump's jealous of that. We saw literally a little less than a year and a half ago at, God rest his soul, at Jimmy Carter's memorial service in late 2024. This was weeks before, or actually I think it was early 2025. Carter died in late 2024. Donald Trump and Barack Obama happen to be seated next to each other because they're seating the presidents and their wives, and they were just chummy. I mean, like they were buddies from high school. Matter of fact, there was a funny moment where Kamala Harris, who obviously she lost the 24 election to Trump, she turns around. She looks at them talking. Obama stops dead in the conversation, looks straight ahead, and Kamala turns around. Just kind of like exhales, like, you gotta be kidding me. Trump wants to be him so freaking bad. He does. He hates the fact that, yeah, both have been elected twice, but Trump lost an election in the middle. Obama was really the last president to win an absolute landslide of an election, which he did in 2008 over John McCain. 2012 was a little bit closer. Trump lost an election to Joe Biden. Not great. So there's a jealousy component to it. There's a racist component to it. And of course, there's a distraction component onto it, which is really the main factor. Is the fact that when you have in the last week over 3 million files, 3 million documents from the Epstein files that are released, that to put it as mildly as I possibly can, don't exactly paint Donald Trump in glory. Doesn't make him look the best. To say the very least, the fact that he was quite close, it's well documented, with the most notorious pedophile maybe in U.S. history. That when you have a Caitlin Collins from CNN, who to me is arguably the top journalist in the game, I think she is phenomenal, questions him in the Oval Office about, what do you have to say to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein as it pertains to the newest files that came out. And Donald Trump, interjects, interrupts, and says, you need to, Caitlin, I never see you smile. You need to smile more. And she retorts, and this didn't get picked up by some people, but she retorts like, I'm talking about survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, Mr. President. It's not really a smiling matter. He's scared. He is. The fact that, listen, the Supreme Court ruled 2 years ago that is basically any act done under the powers of president is legal. You're immune from criminal prosecution. Anything Donald Trump may or may not have done, this is all, allegedly, he wasn't president when that stuff happened. He wasn't. And I would not, even those that are, even lawyers I've seen on social media that are used to reading some of the worst as it pertains to, sex offenders and what have you, will tell you that when you read, not just as it pertains to Trump per se, but when you read what's being alleged in these emails, it's, I don't know how you don't have a pit in your stomach when you're not done reading it, if you can even finish reading it. And that this administration, Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, others, Kash Patel, were as secretive as they were, that it took certain Republicans such as Marjorie Taylor Greene literally breaking from her party on this issue, the issue of, hey, let's get justice for the survivors of the most notorious pedophile in American history. Took a vote to even get these files released, which you can say, well, why didn't the Biden administration? That, to me, that is an absolutely fair question. That's a great, I think Kamala Harris was on Jimmy Kimmel's show, was asked a question. She's like, we want to go through the legal process. Okay, you could have made it more of a focal point than you did, in my opinion. This is about as bipartisan as it gets. When you have that, also the added component of, safe to say the administration's immigration enforcement, if you even want to call it that, is not terribly popular with the American people. People being thrown down the streets, protesters being thrown down the streets, tear gassed, confronting people that are peacefully protesting on the streets, killed in the case of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good, among others, who haven't had their stories told enough. People aren't exactly crazy about that. So, of course, Donald Trump is going to post a racist video, depicting the Obamas as monkeys. Of course he is. That's who he is. It's like back in 2020, during his first administration. COVID numbers, man, they were skyrocketing. They were bad. That was, I think, during the George Floyd protests, and Trump's approval rating was kind of in the gutter. And just out of nowhere, hey, man, this is ridiculous that they're changing the name of the Washington football team. This is an outrage, guys. Who's with me on this one? Brother, we're in a global pandemic. Why are you worried about the name of a professional football team? Why do you care? You're the president. You're the most important man maybe in the world. You got bigger fish to fry, so to speak. This has always been. Steve Bannon, campaign strategist, flood the zone. This has always been the strategy for a decade plus with this guy. When his approval rating is sinking the way it is, with how people are responding to ICE, with the Epstein files being released, a big chunk, over 3 million of them, in which he is heavily implicated, this is his way to get people distracted from that. And I guess the last thing I would say regarding this entire subject, because again, there's folks, and I appreciate that they are, but there's folks that are on social media posting, pictures, like, really great pictures of the Obamas, whether it's Barack and Michelle and their kids, or when they were president, and just the class that came with that family that frankly comes from just about every presidential family in the modern era, with the exception of this guy. Married thrice, kids have illegal business ventures, the whole bit, is the fact that with all of this being the case, the people that I am most angry with in all of this are not MAGA, but those who are MAGA, and it's a big chunk of the base, but those who are MAGA and simultaneously claim to follow Jesus Christ, as I do, as I'm sure a lot of you out there watching and listening are. I think nobody said it better than one of the greatest writers, if not the greatest writer in American history. Frederick Douglass said it best. And I quote, What I have said respecting and against religion, I mean strictly to apply to the slave-holding religion of this land, and with no possible reference to Christianity proper, for between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, end quote. In other words, saying there's a difference. There is a difference in Jesus and American Jesus. When you have I think it was the National Prayer Breakfast a couple of days ago, yesterday, a couple of days ago, and, Trump goes up there and he's talking about how, I don't see how you could be a Christian and vote Democrat. And you have folks coming up there talking about how, this is just, Trump has done more for Christians than any president in American history. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. What about this man? Name one quality. What about this man represents the one that I believe in my bones, and many others do, to be the God of the universe? What? What about the way that he lives his life in any way, shape, or form reflects that? Like when you have, and I'll be honest, I wasn't going to address this, but it fits in the conversation. Then we'll move on. When you have the halftime show, the Turning Point USA halftime show, who, by the way, they didn't exactly land some A-listers. I thought they did better than they did. Jeez. And when it's the All-American halftime show and it's supposed to reflect, as Franklin Graham, son of the late, great Reverend Billy Graham, was talking about how, this halftime show is to reflect the teachings of Jesus, and we're reinforcing Christianity and all this. And shout out to Tim Alberta, who wrote a great book, Kingdom, Power, and Glory. He tweeted, "Yes, like so many Christians who feel besieged by a wicked culture, I'm grateful to Turning Point USA for platform the God-fearing paragon, Kid Rock, who brought us hits like, excuse my language, Balls in Your Mouth, Wax the Booty, and Cadillac, and I'm not going to say the second word. You probably can guess what it is." A guy who has, by the way, lyrics in his songs that strongly reflect pedophilia, underage girls. That's the paragon of Christianity that Turning Point is putting out there. Please, there's a reason that Corey Asbury and Forrest Frank, two fantastic Christian artists, there's a reason they pulled out of the Turning Point USA halftime show when they found out, because they were under the impression, this is just going to be a worship show. Not just. It's going to be a worship show. This is about Jesus and only Jesus. And then they find out, no, there's going to be like a MAGA aspect. Okay, well, this isn't about Jesus then. We're pulling out of this. That is the group of people I think that makes me the angriest. Because while I love doing this show and I love sports, I love doing this, and I love my family and everything. No one I love more than Jesus. Nothing comes first in my life above my faith. It just doesn't. And when you have folks that profess to have those same values, just full-throated support around the most morally depraved president in American history. That pisses me off a lot. So, reason Trump did this is to distract from the Epstein files at the end of the day. He's terrified at people finding out what he allegedly, was a part of in that entire endeavor. And just another opportunity to say, prayers continue to go out to the victims and hoping that they can receive the justice that they so rightly deserve. And shout out to the Obamas too. They don't need, I'm sure they appreciate the outpouring of support from everyone out there. They're pretty accomplished in their right. I don't think they need that reinforcement like this individual in the White House does. Let's move on back to sports, because generally that's what we try and focus on the show when sitting presidents aren't making racist attacks at previous presidents. I did want to talk about the Hall of Fame a little bit. So the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026 got announced last night, and it was the following individuals. It was Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, Roger Craig, and Drew Brees. And we can go and show you. I want to give love where it's due to all of the candidates, or all the inductees, future inductees. So Larry Fitzgerald, first and foremost. Again, there's To me, Fitz and Breeze were the only no-brainers they absolutely get in. So Larry Fitzgerald's Hall of Fame resume, he played from 2004 to 2020. He's one-time first-team All-Pro, 11-time Pro Bowler, two-time reception leader, two-time receiving touchdown leader. He is a member of the NFL 100 all-time team. Second most catches in NFL history behind only the greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice. He's got the most receiving yards in one postseason and the most receiving touchdowns in one postseason. He got that back in 2008 when the Cardinals made their incredible run to that Super Bowl before losing to Pittsburgh. Fitz was probably the best player that entire postseason. So Larry Fitzgerald getting the Hall of Fame as it's a no-brainer. And by the way, something that I find, two things I find really interesting is, number one, and shout out to Andrew Filipponi, great radio guy in Pittsburgh. He pulled out this stat that I thought was really interesting, that now the Pitt Panthers, Pitt is where Larry Fitzgerald played, now they have the third most Hall of Famers in history. I was like, Pitt does? Yeah, they do. So shout out to Larry Fitzgerald. And by the way, also too, when you consider that he put up the numbers that he put up with the following quarterbacks, it's going to take a minute. Josh McCown, Sean King, John Navarre, Kurt Warner, Tim Rattay, Matt Leinart, Brian St. Pierre, Derek Anderson, Kevin Cobb, Max Hall, John Skelton, Richard Bartle, Brian Warrior, Ryan Lindley, Carson Palmer, Drew Stanton, Blaine Gabbert, Josh Rosen, Sam Bradford, Brett Hundley, Mike Glenn, and Kyler Murray. 22 different quarterbacks. And he put up the resume that he put up. Shout out to Larry Fitzgerald, no-brainer. Next one, and I was shocked, but I'll be honest, happily shocked that this guy got in. This is second opportunity at being eligible for the Hall of Fame. Luke Kuechly. Go and put up Luke Kuechly's Hall of Fame resume. Played from 2012 to 2019. Really had his career cut short because of injuries, mainly concussions. But he's a one-time Defensive Player of the Year, five-time first-team All-Pro, two-time second-team All-Pro, seven-time Pro Bowler, two-time tackles leader, and he is tied for the most combined tackles in a single game. Folks, he had 24 tackles in a single game in his career. So Luke Kuechly, when he was in and part of, to me, what goes into being a first or second ballot Hall of Famer, in some cases three, is, were you at one point, at the very least in the discussion, as the best player at your position? Luke Kuechly was indisputably, at his peak, the best linebacker in football. There's no question about it. What he did for that Panthers defense, again, he won DPOY in 2013. A couple of years later, he was the centerpiece of that Panthers team in 2015. Sorry, centerpiece of the Panthers defense. Cam was the centerpiece of the Panthers team in 2015 that got him to 15-1 in the Super Bowl. Again, it's so much of this is, and this is why the Baseball Hall of Fame kind of gets on my nerves a lot, is, well, the steroid issue that people get up in arms about, number one. But number two is, you get guys going to the Hall of Fame that were stat accumulators. Like, I don't mean any disrespect, but Frank Gore in the NFL kind of falls in that category for me, where it's, gosh, he's third all-time leading in rushing. There was not a day in his career that people thought Frank Gore was the best running back in football, or even in the conversation for it. Luke Kuechly was indisputably, in his peak, the best linebacker in football. And again, he was, I'm glad he got it. Genuinely glad he got it. I think his resume would show you that. I'm also glad this is his the next player, his second opportunity getting the Hall of Fame. Adam Vinatieri, probably the greatest kicker, certainly the greatest clutch kicker of all time. Long career, played from 96 to 2019. Four-time Super Bowl champion, got through with the Patriots, one with the Colts. How about that? Winning Super Bowls with Brady and Manning. Three-time first-team All-Pro. He was on the NFL's 100 all-time team. He is the all-time leading scorer. We kind of hear that in basketball more than football, but Adam Vinatieri scored more points than any player in NFL history. He's got more made field goals than any kicker in NFL history. The most consecutive field goals made in NFL history. And of course, the two most iconic moments of his career, two game-winning kicks in a Super Bowl, which he did against the Rams in 2001 to get the Patriots their first Super Bowl title. And then 2 years later, against the Carolina Panthers, hit a field goal to win that game. And to me, with Vinatieri, obviously the longevity, the consistency, all of it. And I think you got a good picture of how difficult what he did in this game was just 2 weeks ago in the blizzard in Denver, when once the snow starts to fall, I mean, both Denver and New England could not buy a kick. I mean, it was Borregales and Will Lutz, brutal. And yeah, of course, it's already hard enough to kick. It's another thing to kick when the field's wet and sloppy and you could slip and the snow's coming down so hard you can barely see the goalpost. Adam Vinatieri did that in a playoff game to tie the game. We all remember the Tuck Rule game against Vegas, or well, not Vegas. They were the Oakland Raiders at the time. 2001, Brady's first playoff start. After the play, Tom gets New England in field goal range, and in the driving snow, Vinatieri nails. You can barely even see it on the broadcast. Hits the ball through the uprights. to send it to OT, and then it ends up hitting the game-winning kick in overtime to send New England to the AFC title game. They went on to win the Super Bowl with a Vinatieri kick. There was no question this guy was going to eventually get in. In fact, he gets in second try. Got no problem with that. By far the greatest clutch kicker of all time. Adam Vinatieri is in the Hall of Fame. Kind of the most controversial one on this list would be Roger Craig, who got through the seniors committee. We could show Roger Craig's Hall of Fame resume. Played from, this is 96 to 2019. I apologize. Roger Craig actually played from, I think, 83 to 93, if I'm not mistaken. So I apologize for that little typo. Regardless, though, the rest of it is correct. 3-time Super Bowl champion, 1-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 1-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, and of course, he led the league in catches in 1985, which he was a running back. I mean, Roger Craig, in today's game, Roger Craig would have been excellent. He's kind of the 80s version of Christian McCaffrey. Ironically, 2 49ers running backs where, yeah, he could run the football effectively, but he also was a very integral part of the pass game with Joe Montana and those incredible Niners teams of the 80s. There's controversy in this in the sense of, man, Craig, L.C. Greenwood, which I think L.C. Greenwood should have been in the Hall of Fame. That's another conversation for another day. Other guys like that. That the argument is, if it took you this long to get in, are you a Hall of Famer? I'll be honest, I'm borderline with Roger Craig. The thing is, based on my understanding, the way the voting works is that 5 guys that are eligible, first-time eligible guys, or not first-time eligible guys, in the first, I guess, group of Hall of Fame candidates. As far as I know the rules, up to 5 can get in. And then you can do seniors committee, coach, owner. Like, you can have as many as 8 Hall of Fame inductees. I'll be honest, I won't get into the voting minutia. Basically, it's not a situation where the top 5 highest voted guys get in the Hall of Fame. You have to reach a certain requirement. I think it's 80% of the vote. I could be wrong. I apologize if I am. So it's kind of borderline. Marshall Yonda was a candidate to get in. It's iffy. I'm happy for Roger Craig. In his peak, again, we go back to were you the best player at your peak. Roger Craig was never the best running back in football. He was the best two-way back in football. By the way, on a dynasty. That means something. You were an important part of one of the greatest teams, one of the greatest runs in NFL history, the 1980s 49ers. If that's the case you want to make, again, with the addition of the Hall of Fame resume we showed you, that's fair. And the obvious one, or the last one, it's probably the most obvious one, Drew Brees. Go and show Drew Brees' resume. It's quite long. 1-time Super Bowl champion, 1-time Super Bowl MVP. He's a 2-time Offensive Player of the Year, 13-time Pro Bowler, 7-time passing leader, 4-time pass touchdown leader, 2-time passer rating leader, 6-time completion percentage leader. He has the most consecutive games with a touchdown pass. That would be 54 if you're interested. Most career 5,000-yard passing seasons in NFL history. And, of course, at the bottom there, he retired as the all-time leader in touchdown passes and passing yards. Listen, Drew Brees to me is indisputably the greatest quarterback to never win an MVP. I think the fact that he didn't, it was the closest he could have gotten to an MVP was 2011. But because Aaron Rodgers' numbers were slightly better and the fact that Aaron's Packers that year went 15-1, you were going to give Aaron Rodgers MVP. I got no problem with that. Closest Brees came to winning. If Aaron Rodgers did not exist, Drew Brees would have an MVP on his resume. Regardless, indisputed first ballot Hall of Fame guy in Drew Brees. And again, I've said religiously on the show for as long as the show has been on, 6.5 years, Drew Brees is the single most accurate quarterback in the history of the game. I mean, you saw it with that one graphic, or that one aspect of the graphic. 6 times he led the league in completion percentage like this. For a guy, obviously we know about the shoulder injuries at the end of his career with the San Diego Chargers before he ended up going to the New Orleans Saints and pairing up with Sean Payton, and the rest is history, as they say. To go from somebody where, okay, now you get the shoulder injury. He was never crazy mobile as a quarterback. He can move a little bit, but what was it, somebody that blew you away with his athleticism? And he was undersized, 6 feet tall. Has to see over big offensive lineman. The fact that he was as great as he was, you can give a lot of credit to Sean Payton, and you should. Sean Payton is another guy who I think is going to get in the Hall of Fame at some point in his career. But for this quarterback, again, he's the guy, when people rank the top 10 quarterbacks of all time, I'm most offended isn't included. Because he's not on every list. Like, there are guys, respect to all these individuals, all-time legendary quarterbacks. Roger Staubach. Staubach's above Brees, my bad. Troy Aikman. Terry Bradshaw. guys where I'm like multi-time champions, all-time legends. I think Breeze was better. I really do. Not to mention, you say, oh, you only got one championship. Think about those last 3 playoff runs. My bad. The last 4 playoff runs Drew Brees had. Let's just go. We'll go from 2017 to 2020. It's the last 4 years of Brees' career. And the Saints were great for all of them. And Brees was great for about 3.5 of them. 2017, they're going to go to the NFC Championship game. Minneapolis Miracle. Stephon Diggs. The next year, we all remember the missed pass interference call. Again, Peyton had mismanaged the clock before that, but there's no question if that penalty gets called, Saints bleed the clock down, kick the field goal, and they go to the Super Bowl to play the Patriots. 2019, they win 13 games, and that was in the old system where top 2 seeds got a bye. They were the 3 seed because of some tiebreakers with San Francisco and the Packers. They play the 6 seed Vikings, lose in overtime. Drew Brees never touches the football. And then 2020, they're, I think, the overwhelming favorite to win the NFC coming into the season, and they lose to Tom Brady and the Bucks in the divisional round at home. And that's it for Drew Brees' playoff career. And by the way, remember 2011 as well. That close to going to another NFC Championship game, loss on the catch 2, or not, I guess the catch 3 technically, from Alex Smith to Vernon Davis in what was one of the all-time great fourth quarter battles in 2011 between the Niners and the Saints. So listen, this is, in a strange way, I think Drew Brees is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in history. The resume is what it is. He's an indisputed first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm very happy to see him get in. I'm seeing my dad text me, and he's leading me into the one issue I had with the Hall of Fame class. Again, I'm iffy on Roger Craig. Between him and L.C. Greenwood, I would have absolutely put L.C. Greenwood in. I think L.C. Greenwood should have been a Hall of Famer regardless. We showed you the resumes of all those guys, and they're all fantastic. You can call me biased. Frankly, I probably am a little bit, but I also have a case to back it up. I think Jason Witten should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. I do. And listen, I'll be honest, part of my bias is, grew up not terribly far from, where I am. I've gotten the chance to meet him briefly back in 2018 after his first retirement. Class act. He's a Walter Payton Man of the Year award. His off-field resume speaks for itself. Great story. Overcame a lot in childhood and went on to be, without question, the greatest tight end in Cowboys history. Go and show Jason Witten's resume. So played from 03 to 2017 and then took a year off, called Monday Night Football in 18 and then came back for 2 years in 19 and 20. He's a 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 11-time Pro Bowler. He has the most consecutive games played by a tight end, and that matters because we know the beating tight ends take. Most catches in a single game by a tight end in NFL history with 18. He's the Dallas Cowboys, iconic franchise, Dallas Cowboys all-time leader in catches and receiving yards, and the 4th most catches in NFL history. Only guys ahead of him, Jerry Rice, Tony Gonzalez, and a guy who got in this class and should have, by the way, Larry Fitzgerald. Outside of those 3, no one has more catches in the history of the league than Jason Witten. Now, listen, we've had guys that, at Witten's position, tight end. Shannon Sharp retired, as far as I'm concerned, without a doubt the best tight end in NFL history. At the time Shannon Sharp retired, took him 3 tries to get in. T.O., top 5 receiver all time easily. Now, some of that is, we know the voters beef with T.O., and there was some stuff there that had nothing to do with football. Took T.O. 3 tries to get in. What I would say quite simply is this, and it goes back to my initial take with what I would take into account if I were voting for the Hall of Fame. At any point in these players' career, was there a reasonable discussion to be had, bare minimum, a reasonable discussion to be had that they were the best player at their position? Drew Brees, there was. Luke Kuechly, there was. Larry Fitzgerald, there was. Vinatieri, he was. Roger Craig, no, but important part of a dynasty, okay. You saw right there, twice Jason Witten was, he was voted the best tight end in football, and 2 other times he was voted the second best tight end in football. 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro. And he's top 5 all-time in catches, and he is the single Iron Man in the history of the position. Missed 1 game his rookie year because of a broken jaw. Didn't miss any other games outside of that. That's a Hall of Famer. As far as I'm concerned, it's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Hope he gets in next year, but here's the tough part. If you look at the list of guys Let me pull this up. Schefter tweeted it last night after the Hall of Fame was announced. So obviously the guys that didn't make it, Jason Witten, Marshall Yanda, guys like that aren't in the Hall of Fame. Here's the upcoming class for 2027, and it is strong. Rob Gronkowski, pretty obvious first ballot Hall of Famer. I know Patriots fans aren't sure about that based on with Belichick and Kraft. To me, Gronk's the greatest tight end ever. Gronk's going to be in. Big Ben. I think Big Ben's absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer. Adrian Peterson. He's going to get in. It's a matter of whether he's first ballot. Richard Sherman, a little iffy. He probably gets in eventually. Not first ballot, but he gets in eventually. Cam Newton, I don't think Cam's a Hall of Famer. He had, I think, 3 winning seasons in his entire career. Antonio Brown, numbers say he's a Hall of Famer. Now, if they kept T.O. out 3 years, I don't know how long, and his numbers are way better than Antonio Brown's, I don't know how long they're going to keep AB out. We'll see. Alex Mack, Andrew Whitworth, Eric Weddle, Gerald McCoy, Le'Veon Bell, Joe Hayden, Malcolm Jenkins, Brandon Brooks, Dante Hightower, Ryan Kerrigan. Again, most of those guys, with respect, great players, but not Hall of Famers. Gronk's a no-doubter. Big Ben is a no-doubter. Adrian Peterson, argument to be made, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Sherman eventually gets in. And then Antonio Brown, we're going to go into 2020. And by the way, Belichick hasn't gotten in. Kraft hasn't gotten in yet. Not to mention class of 2028. Guess who's in that one? Tom Brady. So, I don't envy their position. I won't say I don't envy their position. I would love to be a Hall of Fame voter. It's going to be very congested the next couple of years. Let's put it that way. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to feel pretty snubbed. And by the way, now we got to get to, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but Eli Manning. I was like, wait a second, I beat the greatest quarterback ever twice, and my numbers, all-time numbers, are top 10 quarterback history. Yes, but outside of those 2 iconic runs, you were an above-average quarterback. Very, very good. Could be excellent any given Sunday. Could be mediocre any given Sunday. At the end of his career, he struggled. Happens with most players, almost all of them. I don't think Eli's a Hall of Famer. According to the voting, it doesn't sound like he was close this go around, which when you see the names that made it and the names that barely missed, yeah, Eli's not in that class. So, and Eli certainly was never in the discussion for best quarterback, not once. So there you go. All right, let's shift to, what do we got next? Oh, briefly, I did want to discuss the NFL award winners. If I can pull those names up, because the NFL honors were last night. John Hand hosted. I'll be honest, I didn't think it was the most, it's going to sound mean, well-produced show in the world at times. But regardless, NFL honors, and then let's look at the awards. So here we go. And we'll get to MVP. Obviously, Stafford won MVP. But Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, not shockingly, won unanimously. I don't know, he broke Strahan and TJ Watt's all-time single-season sack record. Pretty obvious DPOY. Offensive Player of the Year was Jackson Smith-Njigba. That also felt pretty obvious to me. He had an unbelievable season. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Ted McMillan. I do agree with that. And I love that this is a new award. Protector of the Year, which goes to the best offensive lineman, went to Joe Thuney from the Chicago Bears. How about Joe Thuney, man? Patriots, important to a dynasty. Chiefs, important to a dynasty. Goes to the Bears. They have their best season in years. So kudos to him. Comeback Player of the Year, Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, I would have loved to see my guy Dak win it, but McCaffrey was an MVP candidate, so of course he's going to get Comeback Player of the Year. Coach of the Year was, to me, the single most difficult category to vote. I have no issue with Mike Vrabel getting it. Took over a 4-win team, made it a 14-win team, and even though postseason doesn't, I think it should come into account for regular season awards. Patriots in the Super Bowl playing in 48 hours. I haven't seen the voting yet, but when you consider, God, Vrabel, Ben Johnson, you talk about Mike McDonald, the guy who's going to be facing on Sunday, Mike McDonald with the Seahawks, Liam Cohen with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He also took over a 4-win team and made it a 13-win team. Coaching was Kyle Shanahan, what he did with a beat-to-hell roster in San Francisco. The fact they got to the second round of the playoffs is a miracle and a testament to coaching. Carson Schwessinger, linebacker from the Cleveland Browns, he got Defense Rookie of the Year. Personally, I would have given it to Nicky Manwari, but regardless, deserving Defense Rookie of the Year. Assistant Coach of the Year, Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels will go down as one of the worst coaches, one of the worst head coaches of all time, and one of the greatest coordinators of all time. He's the classic coordinator, not coach, as we've seen. Of course, One more, and by the way, Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, Bobby Wagner. If you didn't see Bobby Wagner's story in his speech, highly recommend it. Bobby Wagner, A++ human being, what he's doing with regards to, awareness for people who might have symptoms of a stroke. He lost his mom to a stroke, early in his life. Like, great, unbelievable story, great guy, and happy for Bobby Wagner. So MVP. Again, we're going to dedicate an entire segment to it, frankly, because I already made my MVP case a month ago. It's on the YouTube channel. Feel free to check it out. It went to Matthew Stafford in what was one of the closest, as close as it can possibly get, MVP races in NFL history. So when it comes to guys, total vote getting. So Matt Stafford came in first at 366 points. For those who don't know, first, I think it's first place MVP vote, you get 5 points. Second place, you get 3. Third, I think you get 1, I think. Matt Stafford came in first, 366 points. Drake May came in second, 362 points. So, in other words, if one of the Stafford people voted for May, May's MVP. It's that close. Followed by Josh Allen at 91 votes, or 91 points. Christian McCaffrey at 71 votes. And my God, Trevor Lawrence at 49 votes. Now, as it pertains to first place votes, it went Stafford at 24, May at 23, and the last two are kind of a joke. Josh Allen at 2. I love Josh Allen. This is what drives me crazy. Josh Allen's an excellent human being. He's a phenomenal quarterback. But people just have this urge to put him in a class that I don't know if Josh Allen himself thinks he's in. These are actual words that have been stated during this past football season. No one's ever played the position better than Josh Allen. Tom Brady comes to mind. Montana, Manning, Rodgers, Breeze, Marino, Elway, Josh's contemporary, Mahomes. Names kind of come to the top of my head, immediately. And Josh is awesome. But what are we doing? What's his MVP case? They came in second to Drake May, who's an MVP finalist. And the worst one. Justin Herbert got a first place vote for MVP. And the case was terrible offensive line. Okay. And the issues I have with how Josh Allen is overinflated, I have tenfold with Justin Herbert. Immensely talented, big arm, can move, accurate, and gets tighter than any quarterback currently playing in the postseason. People who get on Dak, on Lamar Jackson, at times Josh Allen. This man is, this feels a little mean. We don't have okay, that's probably good. We don't have the graphic. Justin Herbert, if I remember the stats correctly, has not scored a touchdown in 29 of his last 30 drives in the playoffs. I think that's the stat. What are we, MVP? What? How is he MVP? What universe is that an objective take to have? But I'll go to, in more serious discussions, we knew it was a Stafford Drake May battle. And even when I made the case for Stafford, and again, I'm not going to make it on the show now because there's a video that's on the YouTube channel and there's other stuff we want to talk about. We want to focus on the Super Bowl. But I said in that video, and I'll say today, and it's reflected in the voting directly. Anybody who acts like it's clearly one over the other is lying, is just straight up lying. There's a strong case for May, strong case for Stafford. I made both in that video. To me, this case was ever so slightly stronger for Stafford. I would have voted him for MVP. I agree with him winning the award. Loved, by the way, that he announced on stage he's coming back for next season. That's great. But if Drake may have won it, wouldn't have a problem at all. Not even a little bit. He absolutely would have had a case to win the award. My anger, frankly, comes from the fact that Allen got 2 votes, 2 first-place votes, and Herbert got 1. I don't even know how that's a... Listen, I know big, strong quarterbacks with massive arms are amazing to watch. I'm as guilty as anybody of becoming more infatuated with the aesthetic than the productivity. Not that these guys aren't productive. Herbert's never productive in the playoffs. Josh is not productive in the biggest moments in the playoffs. May and Stafford were miles ahead of those guys this season. Not even close. How about that, though? Stafford, 24 first-place votes, May 23. Switch one of those. May wins MVP. Remarkable. Okay, let's do the Brady segment, and then we'll go to break and talk about the Super Bowl. So there's been a lot made out of the fact that in an interview with Pro Football Talk, that Tom Brady said, and I quote, he doesn't have a dog, or, and I quote, I don't have a dog in the fight in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm just hoping for a good game. It's the ultimate cliche we hear at this time of year. Just hoping for a good game. That's a weird statement to hear coming from the greatest quarterback ever who spent 20 years with one of the teams playing in the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots. And Patriots player, Robert Spillane, linebacker for the Patriots, came out and said he went so far as to say it made me sick that Tom, doesn't have a dog in the fight, quote unquote. Gronk didn't call Tom out. We know how close Tom and Gronk are, but Gronk was like, heck yeah, I'm pulling for the Patriots. I'm not making any, secret about that. Vince Wilfork really went at Tom where he's saying, man, don't give me that political bull crap. You're pulling for the, because again, and obviously Boston sports fans, shout again to my man, Tim Barnard, third mention of the show. Shout out to Tim. Check out Boston Sports Summit, win or lose. Check out his reaction after the Patriots win or lose Super Bowl next week. I was talking to him about this. Other Patriots fans have expressed outrage at him saying that. And I'll be honest, I'll use example. My favorite athlete of all time, and this will probably never change, is Steph Curry. If 15 years from now, the Golden State Warriors are in the NBA Finals, and Steph comes out and say, yeah, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'd be like, you gotta be kidding me. Like you spent hopefully like 20 years with the franchise. You won MVPs and championships. You're the best player by a mile in our franchise's history. You're impartial to the Warriors like you are to the Miami Heat. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I'd be offended if I were a Warriors fan and Steph did that. So if I were a Patriots fan, of course I'd be like, really, Tom? Here's the thing. Tom's obviously lying. He is. There are folks out there that think he is telling the truth. There are folks that have said, oh, he's jealous of Drake May. Guys, Drake's fantastic. This is the greatest player in the history of the game of football we're talking about here. He ain't jealous of a soul. Okay, I think Tom's secure. He's certainly secure financially. His legacy is more secure than any player in the history of the NFL. The one question that ever lingered, Tom or Bill? Tom answered that the second he left Bill. Everything's set with this guy. He's got all the records, all the rings, one with multiple franchises. Tom Brady is not jealous of Drake May. That is absurd. There are people who think Tom was jealous of Mahomes, who love Drake May. Mahomes better. Tom and Mahomes have a great relationship. Drake May, maybe I'm wrong, but Drake May's probably not going to be in the discussion in 10 years. Drake May, the greatest quarterback ever. Mahomes could be in 10 years. Tom and Patrick have a great relationship. So I imagine Tom and Drake aren't on bad terms. Drake's a good dude. Tom's cool. I don't think that's an issue. So Tom's lying. He's pulling for the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And I know he's a broadcaster for Fox, part owner of the Raiders. I'm sure he'll mentor Fernando Mendoza a lot, once he gets drafted in April. It's a mix of, it's something, don't make more out of it than what it is. I mean, there were some radio hosts in Boston that were pissed off about it, like, man, you don't care about Boston, you and your stupid TB12 method. It's like, well, guys, that TB12 method is the reason you got 2, 3 more Super Bowls at the end. So you should probably be pretty thankful for that TB12 method. Just saying. Gave you a lot of great memories at the end of his time in New England because of that TB12 method. Because he took insane care of his body at the end of his career. So it's a mix of, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that Brady said that. Actually, it's really ridiculously said that. But I don't think it means, oh, God, he hates the Patriots. He's still bitter about Belichick kicking him out. Belichick's not there anymore. And Tom has raved about Bill. Whether that's him being genuine or not, who knows? But he's raved about Belichick. So there you go. We're going to take a break. But, folks, all comes down to this. When we come back, everything, all the last 5 months of content on the show, really 6 months, going back to our prediction shows, all the last 6 months of content and prognostications and predictions and basically trying to call the future before we see it comes down to this game. Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks, the Patriots. I'll have predictions for the game. Keys for the game. What leads me to predict one team over the other after this 1-minute break of Car Rip Live, folks. Do not go anywhere. Super Bowl predictions in just 1 minute. Welcome back to Carving Up Live, folks. I don't know who said it first. I don't know if it was a broadcaster, a fan, or some guy on the street. But we'll repeat it on this show. It all comes down to this. Super Bowl 60. Get the background music. Let's not waste any time. Predictions for Super Bowl 60. Here we go. Seahawks and Patriots. All right, so we know the matchup by now. Seattle Seahawks out of the NFC. New England Patriots out of the AFC. The Seahawks in this game are favored -4.5. So we might as well, for good measure, make this the last game for my favorite segment of all time. It is called...
What a betting man.
If I were a bet man, I am looking at the Seahawks and Patriots Super Bowl 60. Can't believe how fast the season's gone by. And I'm looking at a number of factors. The first thing I'm looking at is a mirror. I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at how I have predicted Super Bowls in my time doing this. So this predates the podcast. The Carving Up started October 2019. This is how I've done in Super Bowl picks in my lifetime. Rough start early. Okay, I got my first 6 Super Bowls incorrect. From Super Bowl 47, which was Ravens and Niners, all the way to Super Bowl 52, which was Eagles and Patriots. Got every single one of them wrong. Some of them I should have gotten. If it had been a pass interference in the end zone of Michael Crabtree, probably would have gotten that right. San Francisco would have won. 2 years later, Seattle had run the ball in the one in the previous Super Bowl matchup between these two teams. Would have gotten that one right. If Atlanta not blown a 28-3 lead, would have gotten that one right. And if the Belichick and bench Malcolm Butler, would have gotten that one right. But you know what, folks? Super Bowls, especially modern Super Bowls, could be a few plays to decide these games. Basically, since the show went to YouTube, which was January 2021, 4 out of my last 5 correct. So it's got last year dead wrong, obviously. 5-8 record, not great, but 4-1 in my last 5. So I've gotten hot as of late. So in this game, to me, the key is pretty simple. It's the defenses. So for Seattle, news that I'm sure scared the you-know-what out of every single Seattle Seahawks fan when they saw the notification on their phone from Schefter. Nick Emmanwori, turns his ankle in practice on Thursday. Like, oh my God, this is maybe the most valuable member of our defense. Is he going to go? Mike McDonald head coach of the Seahawks, has given all indications Emmanwori is going to go on Sunday, and that the ankle has gotten better by the day. So that's fantastic news for Seahawks fans and for football fans. Like, I'm a Nick Emmanwori fan. I loved him out of last year's draft. I want to see him in Super Bowl Sunday. It looks like he's going to be there. When you look at the comparison of these defenses, it's razor thin, and we'll show you that in just a moment. But first, for New England, there's been a lot made of the fact that we can show Drake May's numbers. He's struggled in the playoffs. I mean, he just has. Darnold has been significantly better than Drake May. Drake May, 5 total touchdowns, 5 turnovers, 55% completion, 177 pass yards per game, 84 rating. He is 3-0, and we'll show you a graphic to sort of illustrate why that's the case in just a moment. If you average those numbers out over the course of the season, Drake May, I think statistically, would be the worst starting quarterback in football. Obviously, he's nowhere near that. He was an MVP finalist. He was a vote away from winning MVP last night at the NFL Honors. But you also have to take into context what New England was going through. Put that graphic up. Teams that beat a top 5 defense every playoff game. 95 Cowboys, 98 Broncos, 20-25 Patriots. And by the way, if they beat the Seahawks on Sunday, that will remain. They will have gone through 4 straight playoff games. Chargers, Texans, Broncos, Seahawks at beating a top 5 defense. So, of course, Drake May's numbers are going to be spectacular. There's a pressure component. The fun part about this Super Bowl is it's a lot of improvements. In this game, a lot of improvements. Yeah, you've got Milton Williams for the New England Patriots. Mike Vrabel, Milton Williams was obviously on the Philadelphia Eagles, who won a Super Bowl last year. Milton Williams was great in that game. Mike Vrabel won Super Bowls as a player with the Patriots, never been here as a coach. You're looking at Cooper Kupp on the Seahawks, not just won a Super Bowl, won Super Bowl MVP. So there's some intermittent experience on both these squads, by and large pretty inexperienced at playing this game, biggest game in American team sports. When you look at all of those factors, you look at the quarterbacks and what they're going to be facing. Drake May, if he wins, there will be those fairly that will say he might be the best quarterback in football. The jump from year 1 to year 2 comes a vote shy of winning league MVP. 14 wins, goes through not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 straight top 5 defenses to win the Super Bowl. And by the way, does it as a 4.5 point underdog in the Super Bowl. And we know it's a Super Bowl. These are the best 2 teams. These lines aren't going to be that big. 4.5, that's a lot for a Super Bowl. That's the pressure on Drake. Pressure on Sam, I think, is less because of what Sam had to go through to get here. We all know his story. Bond with the Jets, who doesn't? Didn't go that great with Carolina, gets Carolina, back up in San Francisco, goes to Minnesota, wins 14 games. And the Vikings said, yeah, but you played the biggest games of the year against Detroit, against the Rams. You were bad. So 14 wins, be damned. We're going with J.J. McCarthy. And he goes to Seattle, wins another 14 games, and has been quite simply one of the best quarterbacks in football since 2024. That includes playoffs. 5th in touchdowns, 9th in completions, 7th in pass yards per game, 7th in rating, 1st in record. So Sam Darnold the last 2 years has been a top 10 quarterback. He I think cements that going into next season if he wins. That he's in that class. He might be in it if they lose anyway. Here's the thing that decided it for me. These defenses both are absolutely outstanding. You look at New England, Christian Gonzalez, Milton Williams, they got some ballers on that side. For Seattle, I think they have more ballers. Both are collectively great defense. Seattle, Devin Witherspoon, Nick Imamori, DeMarcus Lawrence, Ernest Jones, Leonard Williams. I mean, just stacked. 2 defensive coaches, it could be a defensive battle potentially. Show the defensive comparisons, and you'll see, of course, that bottom graphic. Seattle, 1st in points allowed. Patriots 4th. Seahawks 6th in opponent yards. Patriots 8th. Patriots were better than Seattle, 9th in opponent pass yards. Seahawks 12th. But the Seahawks were better stopping the run, 3rd to 6th. And of course, you see the fact the Patriots were first and 3rd down percentage. Seahawks were 9th. Seahawks placed the 4th toughest strength of schedule. And when you consider the Patriots obviously had the last. When you consider the quarterbacks that those teams were facing, it's obviously night and day. The Patriots, if you go through the schedule here prior to the playoffs, they were facing the following: Geno Smith, Tua, Aaron Rodgers, Bryce Young, Josh Allen, Spencer Rattler, Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, Michael Penix Jr., Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Joe Flacco, Jackson Dart, Josh Allen again, a little bit of Lamar Jackson, mostly, his backup in Tyler Huntley, Brady Cook, and finally, at the end of the season, the Patriots faced Quinn Ewers. The Seattle Seahawks, on the other hand, played the following quarterbacks. Here we go. Brock Purdy, Aaron Rodgers, Spencer Rattler, because Kyler didn't start that game. Kyler Murray did start that game. Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, C.J. Stroud, Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford, Cam Ward, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., Phillip Rivers, Matt Stafford, Bryce Young, Brock Purdy. Harder road to get here. Battle tested, better defense. And I think Sunday rather, I think the quarterback's going to struggle a little bit early. A little bit of jitters, a little bit of Super Bowl, everyone's amped up, ready to go. And the difference maker in this game is who will win Super Bowl MVP. It will be a couple of special teams plays by the Seattle Seahawks, Rashid Shaheed. The Seahawks, if I were a bet man, are going to win Super Bowl 60, take the -4.5, higher scoring game than people, I think, expect it to be. I think you're going to have some turnovers, short fields. Both quarterbacks are going to struggle a little bit early on, settle in later. Seattle relies on the running game with Kenneth Walker. I don't think it's a huge Sam Darnold game. 27-20, Seahawks over the Patriots. They win their 2nd title in franchise history. And Rashid Shaheed, the trade deadline acquisition, will be your Super Bowl MVP. The first kick returner base, he's a receiver too, but really kick returner to win the MVP in the Super Bowl since Desmond Howard with the Packers 30 years ago in Super Bowl 30 for the Green Bay Packers. Give me the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl over the Patriots by a final score of 27-20. And with that, that is all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday. Oh, what a show we'll have Monday. Super Bowl reaction. Monday show, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. Hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy the food, all of it. It's going to be a blast. I think it's going to be certainly a better game than it was last year, and a very competitive one. Give me Seattle over the Patriots. Seahawks win Super Bowl 60. We'll react to all of it on Monday's show. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Rashid G's going to be MVP too.
Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.